Joe is pretty high up there in the leaderboards. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a climb for runner watcher, but it's so hard to predict a race like this. I mean, I think he is the favorite in my eyes, but runner watcher is always going to be number one in my heart.
Runner Watcher does play this game more often, I would say, with Joe kind of like diverting to other speed games that could, pay off in his favor in terms of just experience of, playing this game all year long. So who knows? We'll see. But both runners starting off here. So we're going to be going ahead and entering into the escape part of the run. Every runner's favorite segment of the run, filled with thrills. It's a lot of fun. Mostly just a lot of pumping, which is being able to mash perpendicular to your direction when you're going up and left to be able to gain a little bit of speed. But generally just a variance in a couple of seconds between like a good and a bad escape for these guys. A lot of different little RNG movements that you'll see from enemies that can throw things off, but pretty typical segment here that I think we're all used to watching at this point. Pumping hype.
Yep, so it's all early in the game. It's just the king here is to just be as optimal as you can with every little bit of movement. Pumping's really easy time save, of course, for our runners that they can have a pretty high skill ceiling for. There's only so much you can mash a button as a human being. But also we're going to look out for nudging into things. We don't want to spend any extra frames just aligning ourselves.
Yeah, you want to get through all the door frames very cleanly. It's all very unsexy tech if you really think about it. Like, it's all stuff that probably viewers aren't excited about, but this is the stuff that makes Link to the Past these top runners differentiate from the middling runners like myself, is all these little details to every single room, trying to optimize, saving a few frames here, a few frames here, a second or two in this strat, and it adds up throughout the run. It's a really unique speed game in that sense. It's just so many small optimizations throughout the whole run. You really have to have so much knowledge, and I think that's partly why the rando community has gotten so big, is like there's just such a depth of knowledge for this game. Every room has its nicknames, its own concepts, its own differing strats. It's crazy.
Speaking of that, there's actually a room that was named after the randomizer, because we never see it in this run in Gan's Tower. But you're absolutely right about that. There's so many different ways that the two communities, or two portions of our community, have kind of cross-faded their knowledge with each other and or cross-referenced. But we're seeing a lot of very standard, straightforward strats here in the first half of Escape. Two blue guards we both killed with double sword spins. That was a poke spin on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But the exact ways that we did that were very planned. You want to be able to get that key without having to waste any extra time. The first one, we get it right by the door by lining up our spin, and the second one, we just use the boomerang.
Both of them going for pot strats, which is not technically optimal, but loses about a second. That's the strat I use, and especially for a race setting, the ball and chain guard does 1 heart of damage per hit, and you only start off with 3, obviously. So you can get yourself in a real tight situation there, accidentally, taking a hit or two, and now all of a sudden you're at risk of dying in Escape, and you don't want to risk dying in Escape in a race. That would basically be a forfeit at that point for one of these runners at this level. So good job by both of them getting clean kills there on the ball and chain guard, getting the key, going ahead and getting the lantern, which will allow them to enter the second half of Eastern.
And early on in the game, we do expect our runners to be pretty close to each other, but they've been frame by frame for a lot of these rooms, so it just goes to show you how optimal this run is.
Absolutely. Picking up the boomerang, an item we don't talk about much in the speedrunning community, but it does have a lot of really cool properties. It allows you to stun enemies, which you saw with the green guard in the ball and chain room. It also allows you to, kind of grab items at a distance. You saw them grabbing that key and being able to walk towards the entrance of the door without going and picking it up and it coming to them. Here we again see on JoeDamillio's screen, it allows you to freeze enemies and then walk through them. So really useful item as well. You'll see another key grab coming up here in one of these rat rooms. So kind of an underpraised item, I would say.
Absolutely. I mean, not only is it faster than your slash, but we can oftentimes reduce lag by using the boomerang. This is going to come into great effect, hopefully, for our runners on their way to Eastern Palace. But All in all, we're looking for about 6 minutes or so out of the escape. Coming to this mantle right around 4:30 is a pretty good time and pretty well on pace to do so. Looks like both of our runners could manage a sub-6 if everything goes well back here.
I expect nothing less. I expect sub-6s, or I'm gonna have to shame Runner Watcher and JoeDamillio.
Yeah, tables will be flipped. But we're going to get some RNG from the ropes here. Runner Watcher with fantastic RNG. JoeDamillio opting to just simply take a damage boost through one of them.
Yeah, that's a tough room. There's just a million different setups, and some of them are kind of difficult to be able to traverse without taking damage. Sometimes it's just easier to go ahead and get your iframes so you can walk through them instead of trying to slow down and deal with them at all. So you have plenty of health here. Most of the enemies do a quarter heart or a half heart, so pretty easy there. JoeDamillio getting the optimal pattern and being surprised by it, the rat running right into him. So that's the pattern you're always hoping for. The rat can go all the way up to the top left as well, but both of these runners getting good solid RNG there, which is nice.
Also of note, we saw that our runners are walking along the left side wall in that last room, the long one going northwards. If you do that, those bats will never walk into you, so even if you have to take a damage boost from one of the rats, no big deal. We also got a text box.
554 and a 555, so no shame here.
Yeah, definitely a very strong escape.
Yeah, as Yudo was saying, if you hold right entering that room, you actually skip one of the 2 text boxes that are supposed to generate. So if you are playing this game at home, you know, I don't know if it works on the US version, but at least on the Japanese version, if you just hold right entering that door, you will skip 1 text box, and that saves a couple seconds, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That awkward moment, though, where you can't remember whether or not it does that in the US version because it's been so long since you played it.
Yeah, really, both of these runners going for Sank Heart, so that is a safety. It gives you 1 extra heart. It costs like 3 seconds. Makes sense for a race setting. I thought Joe might drop it, but it makes a big difference, especially coming up on Helmasaur in like 40 minutes or so, and some other light Dark World bosses, because that 1 extra heart can sometimes be the difference between dying on a boss and not, giving you 1 extra hit, depending on how you executed the dungeon. I don't understand why anybody would drop it in a race setting, but you know, some people are bold.
I did actually see in all of Benteezy's group stage races, he did that, and I was just very shocked by that.
That's a bold move. You know, I mean, especially, I mean, I think Joe, probably knowing he's got a few-minute lead on PB against Runner Watcher, he doesn't want to, you know, save the few seconds and then give Runner Watcher the room to enter in by dying to Helmasaur or something like that, which would cost minutes. I think it's the smart play. You know, he wants to stick with playing a bit safer and making Runner Watcher have to try and do something to catch up to him. So I think that's the right play in this situation.
Yeah, and we talked about, you know, places later on in the game that are, you know, most valuable for having that Sanctuary Heart. Whenever we're down to 1 heart in this game, you know, and you took the Sanctuary Heart, it's obligatory to say, hey, you know, shout out to Sank Heart, saving my hide. But
yeah, absolutely.
Also, we will have a damage boost where that becomes even more relevant. If you mess it up, you would otherwise have to take a heart refill when you otherwise might not have to.
Here, these runners still in sync basically the whole run. You'll see them actually move throughout this Stalfos room and to basically avoid spawning all 4 of them. If they walk on the right tiles, the right spawn points, they're able to kill the top 2, and the room will allow them to move on without spawning the other 2. Runner Watcher going ahead, using that boomerang that we talked about to grab some magic. The reason for that, you won't have any items that use magic, but the refill at the end of Eastern will refill your magic and your hearts before you're able to move on, and so saving a few frames by grabbing that magic there with the boomerang. And these runners are like literally in sync. This is insane.
Yeah, this isn't no 90s boy band. This is literally our runners doing everything at the exact same times.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I think they've literally been on the same room this whole time. Both of them getting a 5 rupee there, which is really nice. They're going to be doing a strat called Tree Rupees, where instead of going behind Sarashala's hut and getting some extra rupees, they will want to. Oh, let's talk about this real quick. This is a bigger deal, but doing that damage boost to go ahead and get that big key, as Yuda was saying. That's the situation where they could lose health. You know, the intended route for that room is to kill all the enemies in that room, then the anti-fairies disperse, going ahead and using the iframes there to grab the hit the switch and grab the big key saves. I don't even know how much time, probably like 15 seconds, I would think, from clearing that whole room out.
Definitely quicker than trying to, track down all the Stalfos and, trying to kill the Igor there. And then, if you do it right, it's optimally about, a heart and a half of damage you would lose. But the anti-fairies do a whole heart of damage, so it's much riskier if you don't have that Sanctuary Heart. But neither of our runners did Gifted with Greenies. They simply just opted to kill the correct Igor with the bow. Man,
these runners, so in sync, they both have 11 rupees and 24 arrows. I mean, it's perfect, I think they need somewhere around 16, depending on which ones you count being on the path or so, but getting rupees in Eastern, leaving with 15, 16 rupees is really nice because it sets you up for the rest of the run for tree rupees later on to be able to get the monkey to let you in Palace of Darkness. Here we have both runners doing the top right strat here on Armos, leaving one shot left on the last Armos so that he doesn't turn red and is able to one-shot kill them before they get angry, and then their health resets to being full health. So good job by both of them pulling off the strat.
Yeah, basically flawless fights from both of them. Maybe a frame or two that they could possibly save with, slightly more optimal strats, but that went about as well as anyone could have hoped for there. And we'll see that boss, refill afterwards with the magic. This could be relevant later on in the game, actually. If we have any kind of issues, say, with Cold Stare, our runners would actually opt to go to a different dungeon to get the full magic refill, and that's how they would route that in a worst-case scenario. But for now, though, we're going to pick up our boots.
Yeah, so here is the differentiation in rupee strats that I was talking about. The basic strat would be to go ahead and bomb this wall behind Sarashula. A lot of rando players are probably familiar with that section. There's 3 chests back there. They can get bombs, so they can already have 3 bombs, and they would have 100 rupees, which would give them enough to go ahead and not have to worry about that for the rest of the run. However, these runners going ahead and opting to do tree rupees, which saves, I think, about 6 seconds optimally. After Hera, they'll go ahead and pull on a tree, have to kill 4 enemies without taking damage. Then they can manipulate a tree to pull on another. It's all reds. So, a bit of optimization there. As we said, every little thing counts in this run, and saving 6 seconds on grabbing rupees is definitely worth it for a top runner. So, here we see them heading on their way to go get the book. You saw some spin speed there. If you want to talk on that, that's a pretty cool trick you may not have seen before if you're new to this run.
Absolutely. So it's one version of something we like to call super speed. You're going to see Runner Watcher here attempt it. You have to release a sword spin and hit the A button in the very next frame. Doing so activates or arms the glitch. And then all you have to do is walk north or south out of a manual staircase like that one right in front of the library. And all of a sudden, Link walks with a running speed. So you see he has his walk animation, and he's pretty much at dash speed at all times. It only lasts for 1 screen or until you hit the dash button. You'll know it's working because you can't swing your sword. This has a couple of other uses. This particular use is a minor glitch. If we were to clip out of certain walls, like in Death Mountain, that'd be a major glitch, which is something that can actually happen. Another thing of note, though, is that Link will automatically hop off of ledges whenever he approaches one in this state. Mm-hmm. So there is a very dangerous one we might see in the desert coming up ahead. Easily the most dangerous one in the run because you can lose actually several minutes doing it.
Absolutely. Runner Watcher losing a little bit of time to Joe because of failing the spin speed a couple of times. About a screen behind now. Not a big deal, but considering how in sync they were the first 13 minutes, that explains that for you. And pulling off some amazing book spam on his way. Really proud of him for that. Definitely saving time by spamming the book noise while he walks around, right?
He has to play as the song of his people.
How many minutes does spamming the book save over the course of just Desert alone?
Well, I mean, through pure RNG manipulation, he's going to have no problem with the cannonballs now, and obviously Lamolus is going to be a gold split.
Nice. So GG's to Runner Watcher. I really like the way the desert is designed just as from a video game setting because the game has given you these boots and then it kind of designs this dungeon fully around teaching you how to use the boots, teaching you how to bonk things down. You have to get the book and bonk that down to get there. That's a really cool part of, kind of teaching you how to use something without necessarily making a tutorial or making it so obvious. And then and basically creating this dungeon around long corridors that you dash through, dashing between these cannonballs. So the game kind of doing a good job of game design, teaching you to use an item without necessarily, you know, I guess hand-holding you through it. Hand-holding.
Certainly nice when a game, you know, does more showing than it does telling, and that's something that's a hallmark of this game. If you haven't played this through, I definitely recommend a full regular vanilla playthrough. It'll take you probably a little longer than you might think after watching this speedrun. But I mean, every dungeon's like that. They're going to show you how to use all of your items rather than, and you'll have to figure it out in order to progress too. So, you know, this, like you mentioned, doesn't do a lot of hand-holding. But in the Circle of Pots room that JoeDamillio just walked through and runnerwatcher's going through, you'll notice that they're actually picking up a bunch of arrows here, 10 arrows in this room to be exact, and they picked up 5 between here and the cannonball room. So they want to have as many arrows as possible because Lamolus, the boss that's coming up, is very random, and you need at least 12 to kill it. Probably going to need more than that, though, in all honesty.
Joe going ahead doing the desert spin speed there. You can see him switching over to the lantern that he's going to need to light the lamps, and then using that as a buffer, as a pause buffer, in order to make sure he doesn't jump off the level. As Yuta was saying, Runner Watcher, I think maybe smartly choosing not to go for that trick. It does save about a second, I think, from whatever I've timed for it. But it's really scary, especially in a race setting, because if you jump down, you've got to redo the whole first half of Desert again. And I mean, not in terms of getting the keys, but you've got to travel all the way back to getting outside. And that's, you know, that is a shameful walk back. That's a reset when you're doing RTAs, but when you're doing a race, you don't get the choice. So, and here we have
for the volatility of that trick, it's certainly not worth doing unless, you know, that's the only way you do it. And that item buffer, that pause buffer, is really valuable. We're going to see that happen in a lot of different places in this game. And using pause buffering is a very effective way to make sure, 1, that you dodge things, or 2, that you line up pixel perfect tricks.
Okay, so Joe not having the best first luck with the left landmo. This is a big RNG point of the run. It'll be interesting to see where the runners finish after. I feel like this is kind of where the run begins, especially in terms of differentiation. This is a heavy RNG section, and so that little optimal execution of every room is not, you know, can be made up for or lost a lot here in ooh, looks like Runner Watcher frustrated maybe with the just banging into the wall, trying to show off his frustration with this fight, and finishing it off there. And still not a bad fight for either of them, but Joe definitely, I think, finishing a cycle or 2 faster. He's going to be able to kind of come out here to a pretty decent lead. And these runners are now heading up Death Mountain, which they have to head up several times in the run. It's a very frustrating segment of the game. You got these boulders falling from the sky. You got these squirrels called dead rocks that if you hit them, they freeze in place. Sometimes they can block your path, and they're very random. And so, you know, we're going to be heading there for the first time to Hera, which is actually one of the more sneaky difficult dungeons. JoeDamillio about to set up fake flippers, if you want to talk about that.
Yep, so we need to make our way up to the mountain. There's a couple ways we can go, but we're going to take advantage of the game's programming where it does not check for flippers if you enter a screen transition right after entering the water. So we need to be 1 pixel away from the screen transition when we do it. This bush here and pressing diagonally after a slash lines it up perfectly every time. This is really risky, though. Going through this whirlpool saves about 6 seconds optimally if you do everything right, like Runner Watcher just did. But if you get hit while you're in this state and you're in the water, you could charge something called like an infinite screen scrolling glitch, where it's basically a soft lock. And while we could reset the game and go back to that bush, it would be a gigantic time loss as far as you know, this category goes. Typically, you'd have to actually end your run, but we needed to have some kind of tournament strategy that was viable. You know, we didn't want to have people just, you know, forfeiting after 20 minutes or close to that.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of commentating the only dual soft lock of the tournament. That was an interesting turn of events. So we went ahead and just reset the whole run and started over. Neither runner remembering to hit select and go to save and quit. So that was a fun event. But I think runners at this level probably not going to see any soft locks unless, you know, they really just make a mistake with their swimming movement, which swimming is awkward in this game. It's pretty terrible. Here we've got Joe heading up to Hera. Hera is a really kind of I feel like underrated difficult dungeon. It's not like it's that hard to do, but it's just mistakes are much more punishing in Hera than they are other places because there's holes in all the floors and you can fall down multiple floors. So messing up anything from the bomb jump to trying to dash past the bumper or the Moldorm fight, getting knocked off basically due to RNG or bad execution will cost them a big chunk of time, 15, 20, 30 seconds. Whereas mistakes in Desert, mistakes in Eastern, you were talking about a couple seconds. So this can definitely be a big reset point for RTA attempts.
Yeah, I certainly know a lot of people who, try to do the bomb jump to the Moon Pearl, and that's one of the more punishing ones because it takes you all the way down to this first floor. But early on, we get to see some boomerang strats to get to the basement. I'm kind of curious as to whether or not JoeDamillio is going to attempt a boom dash here. It almost kind of looks like he's trying to set it up, but he's got pots in his hands, so he might not be doing that.
I can't boom dash. I like item dashing, but I can't like item dash and move in the opposite direction. I'm not that coordinated.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. We didn't explain item dashing either, and we're playing on the Japanese 1.0 version of this game. It's faster with text, and more importantly, it has a lot of minor glitches that are available that haven't been patched out yet in this version. One of them is we call it item dashing. You press the item button and the dash button on the same frame, and Link will do both things at once. You can use that to do a dash and a throw with the boomerang at the same time, and it's a nice swag strat that'll hit the switch. And if you're standing on the pegs, the blue pegs, when the switch is hit, you can get infinite iframes and just kind of sit there. We call it a coffee break, or if you're Christos Owen, a tea break.
Both runners in the tile room at the same time. Moving on to the upper half of Hera. This nice strat by Joe. What are these enemies called? I never remember what these enemies are called.
I've only heard them called hard hat beetles.
Yeah, so really nice strat with the beetles there. You can see a small optimization. Joe slashing upwards, hitting the beetle and hitting the switch at the same time. And runner watcher, unfortunately, taking the knockback from the beetle and falling down a floor. Not very punishing. It's really just one room down, and the beetles he killed are still dead. So it's really not too big of a deal, but I'm sure he's frustrated with that. These runners all getting these runners all getting the Moon Pearl now. That is an item that allows them to be in the Dark World and not turned into a bunny. So that's an item they will need to go through the Dark World in the second half of the game. So they go ahead and bonk over there and heading to Moldorm, which is one of the most RNG heavy bosses. Really, it's all about reacting to his movement, and we'll see if we get dash strats, slash strats, what we're gonna get from Joe up here.
Yep, we need 6 hits total, and the strats do vary quite a bit. Dashing through them is what we saw just a moment ago with Joe. It's a little risky to do that because sometimes he will just collide with you when you do that. But he seems to be chasing after the tail, which is
and the risky up dash. So the way Moldorm works, if you dash horizontal left to right, you're pretty safe of not bonking off his head, but up down is a much more risky strat to do. You're much more likely to take damage or get knocked off. So really cool, risky move by him to do that. Moldorm on that last hit being very fast. The dash strat's technically a little safer. I think the optimal strat is to kind of hold out your sword or slash, but if you can set it up for a certain cycle, then the dash strats are better. Getting a little bit of, I think, lagging issues or something going on with the video feed here. Hopefully it'll be fixed up here in a second.
Yeah, Runner Watcher notorious for having some, you haven't heard it too much yet, but for whatever reason, his capture setup sometimes has really weird audio glitches, and I've always been a fan of that. You get some distorted music, and I think it adds to his charm.
Spins chat asking, spins do not do any additional damage to Moldorm with the fighter sword, so they actually are not faster. It just the one benefit to doing a spin is that I think it has a little bit wider of kind of a hitbox, so you might be able to reach better on a hit. We frozen a little bit here on Runner Watcher screen. Hopefully we'll get him back. Joe on the right here, moving on to tree rupees, as we said. So we went ahead, pulled that first tree, grabbed 2 blue rupees off of it. Now he has to kill 4 enemies in a row without taking damage, and then he will be able to pull the tree on his way to Aghanim's tower, and it will have 4 reds on it. That'll give him the money he needs to pay Kiki, the monkey extortionist, and go ahead and move into pod.
Yeah, so there's as it turns out here in Hyrule, money does grow on trees. The trees will give you 3 different tiers of pulls or prizes from them. If you kill 1 through 3 enemies, you'll get green rupees when you pull a tree. After resetting it, or since the last tree pull, if you kill 4 and take damage, it'll be blue rupees. And if you kill 4 without taking damage after your most recent tree pull, it'll be red rupees. So that's part of why we, route in these enemy kills. We're going to see the Master Sword sword beams come into play for that 4th kill for both of our runners.
Yeah, so Runner Watcher, I guess not dying to Moldorm, so good job. Good skip, going all the way from Moldorm to the Master Sword. I don't know how I did it, but going ahead, just a little bit behind Joe, so still really tight race, which is nice. And you'll see them both running past the mushroom. The mushroom is used to get powder, which is usually the last safety most runners drop. Oh, Joe having an interesting kill route there. That's definitely not the one I do, but going
down in there, a heart.
Ah, interesting. I usually kill the bird in that log on the way back up, but it appears that both of them going to do different kill strats. As long as you get 4 kills in a row, doesn't really matter which enemies you kill. And heading to Aghanim Tower, which is kind of an underrated dungeon as well in terms of you can lose or gain a lot of time in these rooms. There's some tougher rooms and some tougher strats you can do. It'll be interesting to see which strats these runners decide to do. Joe entering into this first room here in a bit. I assume he'll probably do going ahead and killing some enemies, trying to get that last heart so he can have the sword beams actually.
And for the time it took to do so, that was actually very efficiently done.
Yeah, he got a bit lucky there. I was confused. Ooh, Runner Watcher almost losing his sword beams to a bonk there. Let's see what strat. He has enough arrows to do the optimal strat in this room. Very nice. Very nice by Joe. It's always nice. Joe and I would say Runner Watcher, even with 7 arrows, that's a pretty solid amount. It's tough to have the proper amount of arrows in this dungeon because of Landmo and how difficult that fight is. Ooh, Runner Watcher having some issues with these guys having to. Those 2 soldiers, you might have been wondering, why is Runner Watcher taking all this time to try and kill them with this dash? It seems like he fought them really slow. The drop table will make them drop a fairy. Well, they could have the chance of dropping a fairy there, and they want to go ahead and preserve that fairy drop for Turtle Rock. Since they've dropped that powder safety that we were talking about, Turtle Rock is one of the more difficult dungeons, and there's not a lot of hearts in some of the later Dark World dungeons in pots or anything. So trying to preserve that fairy for Turtle Rock helps a lot. So going ahead, taking a bit of additional time. So Runner Watcher having a bit more trouble with Aghanim's Tower. Also had to use some additional arrows, messing up the first room strat, and so he will be missing 1 arrow for the room that Joe just left through. So, small time losses here by Runner Watcher. Still keeping pace, though.
Well, JoeDamillio having a little bit of bad luck in the Circle of Pots room here in Aghanim's Tower. Or Hyrule Castle Tower, opting to, what we want to do is we want to throw 2 pots and hit the one in the middle, and then throw our boomerang and kind of run through. But he had bad guard RNG in the first place. We're going to see some more optimal strats, attempted by both runners. We were talking a minute ago about, prize packs, and a lot of enemies share prize packs that you wouldn't expect to share prize packs, like those blue guards we were talking about dashing through, which will never give you a drop if you dash through them. Also shared by Pokies and Mini Helmosaurs. So there is an opportunity for us to get the next item in the prize pack with the required Mini Helmosaur kill on the Hammer Jump Bridge in Palace of Darkness. That's one place we expect to. Neither of our runners who had to kill them by means other than dashing had a heart drop, and that's the first one in the pack.
Okay, you keep track of the blue balls on the right. I'm going to keep track of them on the left, because I feel like it's always doing commentary and we can't keep track. It's hard when 2 people are fighting it.
Can relate, so I can do that. That makes sense.
Let's do it. Put in your guesses in chat. How many blue balls are these runners going to get? So the average is 3. They can get anywhere from 1 to 15, and it's a huge difference in time in terms of RNG, but most likely getting around 3. The closer they are, obviously, the less the RNG is affecting the race. Yep, maybe it'd be nice if Runner Watcher got a little bit better RNG. He's got a few minutes to catch up in terms of PB wise. So let's make this a race. Let's troll Joe just a little bit. Sorry, buddy.
Well, he's up to 3 blue balls already on my side. So this fight, though, just to kind of explain it, Aghanim is the alter ego of Ganon himself. He's a wizard. That's actually supposed to be a crown on his head. I always thought that was his face. That really threw me for a loop for a long time. But so this fight, it's going to be, the first attack will always be a reflective shot. The next 3 attacks in the cycle will always be, we'll have 50-50 chance.
Ooh, I'm going to let you know how many Runner Watcher had. It was 0.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Joe had 3.
I wish that upon Joe. I'm sorry, Joe, if you watch this video. I'm just rooting for a close race, and you know what? Now we have it because you're both literally in the same spot right now. So Light Worlds essentially within seconds of each other. Pretty awesome,
and really impressive that they both ended up with a sub 30 Light World, because anytime you enter the Dark World at that point, you're having a pretty good run.
Yeah, better run than I'm normally having, so that's really awesome. Both of them will be now heading over to Palace of Darkness, which is a tough dungeon with probably the toughest trick in the game, at least in terms of, for me, for bomb jumps. So we got the hammer jump coming up. It's 2 pixel perfect, I think, Y coordinate positions for bombs in Link, and it allows us to bomb our way over to getting the hammer. It's pretty cool. I think it's one of the swaggest looking tricks. Probably won't be a issue for either of these runners, but there's also a lot of tough rooms in Palace of Darkness, and followed by I wouldn't say a difficult Helmasaur fight, but if Helmasaur decides to troll you and really wants to make it difficult, he can. So sometimes it's a really easy fight, sometimes it's a scary fight, and we'll see if that Sank Heart pays off for either of them in that situation.
Yeah, I suppose the RNG of that fight determines whether or not it's a button masher or a bullet hell. You find out pretty quickly one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So both of these runners paying the extortionist Kiki, having to be careful. If they get hit, they'll have to repay him, and they don't have the money to. They don't have even the 10 rupees to repay him for the first part. So both of them heading in at the same time. 30 minutes in, more than a third of the way through, and we're pretty synced up. So I think you all should be pretty hype about that.
Certainly a great place to be starting here in the Dark World, because a lot of this is, you know, very much execution heavy, less RNG heavy from here on out. There are still some very RNG moments that are going to happen in this run, but for our runners to be this close to each other in the same room, in the same dungeon, you know, obviously speaks to how much these runners have really practiced this game. We like to call this palace a mirror sometimes, because we're going to mirror out of here several times. This allows us to pick up some extra bombs as well along the way. Because they'll always respawn every time. It looks like JoeDamillio had a really favorable arrow drop. I'm not sure if he caught that.
Oh, I did not see that. He's been doing really well on arrows for the whole run. I mean, he went into Aghanim with 12, I believe. I mean, considering you have to do Armos and then you have to do Landmo, generally runners are struggling for arrows going into Aga's tower, and both of these runners had more than the minimum. Usually you have 5 at minimum, or 4 at minimum, but Joe definitely kind of just seeing a surplus of arrows, which will help with a lot of different strats later, and just keep him from slowing down to have to pick up more arrows.
Yeah, we're going to use a minimum of 5 total. We would need to have at least, well, I suppose at the very minimum 1 or 2 just to progress. There will be a couple of pickups we can do as a backup, but we don't want to spend any extra time doing so. But we're coming up on that hammer jump, as we like to call it, the bomb jump that is 2 Y pixel perfect placements, like you mentioned. So there's a couple different ways to do this. A lot of people will use the free menu switch from mirror to bomb to line up Link's first position in the bomb itself. We'll throw one over here and we'll use mirror again. We switched to mirror again to line up the actual second part. I think that was like 2 or 3 extra buffers for JoeDamillio.
Yeah, I think 2. Not bad.
Runner Watcher with about 5 or 6 to set up initially, but certainly a very good hammer jump for both of these runners. To get it successfully on the first try is good.
Yeah, and you did see it correctly. It does say MC Hammer when you pick up the hammer, so that's weird. Yeah, I mean, that strat saves about 45 seconds, so even with some added buffers like you saw there, the intended route is for you to go up and around and go through those dark rooms. If you are familiar with Rando, you probably know those rooms. If you have run this game and don't do hammer jump, you're familiar with those rooms. But a big little detour to go get keys and go bomb the wall and go through all this different stuff, and that's saved from that hammer jump. So it's a really cool trick. It's the second most time saved by a bomb jump, the most being the one we'll see in Ice Palace coming up. But very useful trick to learn. And both of these runners having enough arrows for these, these mimic rooms, so doing pretty well. And runner watcher picking up extra arrows, so both these runners still doing fairly decently on arrows, which is kind of nice. You only really need to have one arrow leaving that room, so having 6 and 11 is
absolutely plenty.
Yeah, that feels good.
What's also worth noting is that we were only down 1 heart for both of our runners walking into the arrow room there. They picked up a heart because having the sword beams allows us to avoid 2 extra menus. Here we have the turtle room here on JoeDamillio's screen.
Perfect.
Runner Watcher. He did it perfectly.
I hate this room. It's so bad. I hate this room. It's very easy to re-pop up a turtle, and all of a sudden now you're scrambling around, you're losing hearts. Those hearts end up maybe coming back to pay you for Helmasaur. Runner Watcher reacting well to the one turtle not flipping and doing that room basically perfectly, considering that the one turtle didn't flip, so good job by him. Joe going under this Helmasaur fight, 17 hits with the hammer to knock off the mask, and then 8 slashes or 4 hammer drops. I'm assuming he's going to do hammers. Yep. Oh, missing 1. You going ahead and making up for the slash. Really nice kill by JoeDamillio.
Yeah, he boosted through for a lot of those hits, including against the fireballs. So that's pretty good situational awareness. You have to be very careful because every attack does 2 hearts of damage. If we'd skipped Sanctuary Heart, he would have been down to 1 hit remaining. Runner Watcher, though, despawns the fireball because if you destroy that mask right as the fireball hits the screen, it completely disappears.
Oh,
he's down to
Runner
1
Watcher
heart.
down to 1 heart. Okay, and he's good to go. Sankheart, everybody. Praise be to Sankheart. As we said, this is the exact situation we talked about as why do you grab the Sankheart? That's why right there. He would have been dead if he did not take that 3-second loss right after escape and grab that Sankheart. As is, he's still in it. He would have lost minutes. Now he's still in the race. So awesome job by Runner Watcher clutching that out. Very scary. Yeah, as Yuta was saying, the mask goes into I think 9 sprites, and so Runner Watcher was aware of the fact that he had 1 hit left on the mask, and once he broke it, that despawns the fireballs. The game can't handle that many sprites on screen, so that's really nice. But Helmets were really giving him a trolley pattern. Immediately upon despawning, that fireball went to another fireball. Oh, Joe accidentally taking a hit from that Popo or whatever the heck that... are these also Popos or is this something else? I don't really know.
I think it has a different name, but to be honest with you, I think Runner Watcher would have a better explanation of the lore.
Yeah, but they do 2 hearts of damage, which they do not look like the kind of... Oh, and taking damage.
The Murderadactyl.
Okay, so Joe's gonna lose some time here. It's not a huge deal, but he'll probably pull the tree to get the Bapple Apple, whatever the hell you guys call it. Oh, I shouldn't say hell, sorry. And refill his
the apples from the tree.
Yeah, because he's taken 5 hearts of damage from those 2 very unassuming looking enemies. So the unfortunate thing in the Dark World is that we are at green armor. The game's intending you to have picked up many more hearts than this, and so you take a lot of damage to these things. Ropas, those are the Ropas. Yeah, thank you.
And of course we could have bottle, we could have bug net, we could have powder at this point in the game. And I think many people playing this game originally probably would have found a lot of those things. At the very least, having the bug net to get like fairies as a backup. So without all of those things at our disposal, pretty tough to make it through here without any major issues. Right now we're going to get that flute, though. This is the best time in our route to do so. There are some things called quick warps that I think both of our runners will attempt here. It looks like Runner Watcher's trying to get the lineup for it.
Absolutely.
Certain pixels that you stand on, 2 out of every 8 actually, will allow you to do a half a second faster warp animation.
Yeah, it saves about 32 frames, and you might think, well, that doesn't seem worth setting these up, and also I believe them to be myth for a long time. I couldn't see the difference, but it's a very subtle difference to learn if you look at the video. But you warp so many times in this this run, and a lot of them are pretty free to set up, so definitely add up over time to save a bunch of seconds. Runner Watcher using that spin speed to run past Usain Bolt there. That one guard happens to be faster than all the other guards, and so that spin speed pretty valuable here. Joe will be bopping this to refill his hearts, but still pretty low on hearts going into Thieves Town, unfortunately.
Yeah, running into several guards, in his path. Also of note, since we didn't see the red guard earlier, and people were kind of like, "Hey, what changed here?" When you kill Aghanim and go to the Dark World for the first time from there, the whole world kind of takes an upgrade. All of the enemies come more difficult. The ones that are there tend to upgrade, and then you'll find enemies where you didn't find them before. So this game's difficulty does step up a bit after you make it to the Dark World from Aghanim.
Yeah, there's that similar SMW thing where you finish the special world or whatever, and all the enemies changed. This has the same kind of impact on you beating Aghanim now. Some of the enemies are tougher. There's added enemies. It's just kind of a cool little twist to the game, stepping up the stakes.
Well, it looks like JoeDamillio bumped into a Zazix here in Thieves Town, so he's even lower in health.
Yeah, you got to remember, these runners do not have the safety of powder, so these mistakes, these small mistakes from Joe are much more punishing. If he had powder, he could go ahead and just powder an anti-fairy in this dungeon and he'd be fine. But obviously, these runners saving that 45 seconds, skipping the powder, which is a lot of time, but this is where it comes to play. Joe taking hits to some interesting enemies. I mean, just kind of tearing through the game so far, having no issues with Helmasaur, having no issues with Lanmo and Moldorm, but here bumping into a couple Dark World enemies now down to 3.5 hearts. He's going to have to be pretty careful.
Well, he does have an opportunity for a really nice time save here called the God Pixel, but with how much health he's already lost, he didn't seem to want to go for it. And I don't think the RNG would have worked for that anyway.
No, it wouldn't have. That so if you get this God Pixel, you're able to dash all the way up that what is called the Hellway, and that is really great because it's very long and there's a lot of enemies in the way. But even if you get this God Pixel, you're at mercy of the RNG of what they call the Patrick Starfishes there, or the other the anti-fairy, the fire snake. So even if you get this perfect pixel, you might not be able to dash all the way up, which happens, and it's very frustrating.
Well, so Runner Watcher didn't attempt the God Pixel either, but he did have a really good dash through, either reading the RNG very well or just getting very fortunate like I would, because I wouldn't be able to read that. But JoeDamillio down to 2.5 hearts. There are a couple of things he can do to pick up hearts along the way. I think there's at least one in the cell in the basement, and he already picked up the one on the way to blind. So at this point, it just matters, will he have enough of a pad if he does mess up blind, the script basically, to survive that fight. If not, it's going to be a very difficult refight.
Runner Watcher getting hit 3 times by the spikes going down back towards the hellway to go to the basement. So both of these runners kind of struggling in a part that you might not expect them to, I would say. Joe not opting to kill a bunch of those blue horse heads. The blue horse heads do have a fairly decent shot of dropping hearts, but he's just going for it. And, I think most of these runners have fought blind enough times that they're probably not too concerned. Blind does 2 hearts of damage if you hit his body or the flying heads, but only 1 heart of damage if the fireballs hit you. So not too bad. Runner Watcher choosing to go ahead and grab 2 heart containers there on the way, so he's back to decent health.
Yeah, better safe than sorry when it comes to Thieves Town, because that refight is literally the worst one in the game, except for maybe Cold Stare, just because of how far you have to go for Cold Stare. But this is going to be 9 hits total, 3 per head here. We talked about it being scripted, basically, because the behavior is going to be the same as long as you hit the head as soon as possible in every phase. JoeDamillio having a very good fight so far. The 4th fireball will always track Link's position, so he didn't
even make it at all dramatic there with his struggles to maintain his health in the dungeon. He goes ahead and just takes care of that quickly. Runner Watcher entering in, as Yuta was saying, like if you go back and have to refight Blind is now at the top of the screen, and good luck. That fight is terrible.
Yeah, and you have to dodge everything, because normally when you start this fight, it's a free first phase.
Yeah, no setups, no scripts. You're actually fighting the boss.
Many people will take the time to get full health when they refight the boss, but neither of our runners have to worry about that, because sword beams would be a good tool for it. It's actually a little bit faster to use sword beams if you have them.
Yeah, strange mechanic to blind, and I think a lot of rando runners probably know this, but fighter sword, Master Sword, Tempered Sword, Gold Sword, they all do the same amount of damage. It's always 9 hits on blind. So also Sword Beams, which are usually fairly weak, also doing 1 hit, you know, of that damage on blind. So Sword Beams can be pretty nice, especially if he's at the top. But both these runners just having really clean blind fights. Pretty good considering the stress they put on us, right, Yuta, for that that Thieves Town. I feel like they both were trying to make it seem a bit more dramatic than it needed to be.
That was very tense in general. I was really expecting, you know, some kind of weird enemy to kind of become the issue. I mean, it was spikes for Runner Watcher and various assorted things, including a Murderadactyl for JoeDamillio. Yep. But now that we've done this, we need to get some money and a sword upgrade. We're going to pick up rupees for our flippers, which we'll get after the next dungeon, Skull Woods. We'll pick up 300 on the way to the blacksmith. Well, Jeremiah Bullfrog, who becomes the blacksmith. And then we're going to warp and do that. It's going to only cost us 10 rupees, and we're going to pick up a total of 600. 90 more than we need anyway. So we're not going to worry about that. But once we've picked up our sword upgrade, we'll head towards Skull Woods, which has the C-shaped house along the path. Some people will opt to pick up rupees in Palace of Darkness instead if they go a different route than the hammer jump. But we'll just pick up a 300 chest here instead.
Yeah, these runners, you know, heading towards my least favorite dungeon, which is Skull Woods. You might be wondering why are they getting tempered? Because you can beat the game with the Master Sword. However, the Tempered Sword, even doing this little trip to warp in and out and take back the Dwarven Smith, saves time, just almost all that time just on Ganon alone, because you'd have to do 24 spins on the final phase of Ganon. And so, let alone all the additional damage you get to do to other bosses and enemies. So definitely worth the trip to get the Tempered Sword. It does save time, even though it's not quote-unquote required.
Well, it looks like JoeDamillio has a little bit of shame today for messing up the fence dash.
Oh, no fence dash? Okay, that loses about, I think, 45 minutes to miss the fence dash. So that's
easily an hour.
Unfortunate. Yeah, he's definitely going to finish in over 2 hours now. So that's probably not going to go well for him. Runner Watcher going for the... Oh, doesn't even go for it. Oh, yeah. Nobody wins this race now. The race is over.
DNF.
Yep. My least favorite room literally in the whole game here, this Gibdo room. Goodness sakes. Joe doing a great job. Not getting the best pattern from the Gibdo, but barely swinging past him. Having to go back and adjust the statue a little bit, but good job by Joe. I hate that room. It is a very difficult room, and the Gibdos do 2 hearts of damage per hit. It is not a fun room. If they start trying to bump into you a bunch while you're moving the statue, it can cause issues. If you want to be real safe, go ahead, pull out the boomerang, freeze them, but I think most top runners don't want to lose that extra menu in time, so just go for this.
You can get some really favorable positionings with the Mummy, and actually I think Runner Watcher almost got it there with one of those Gibdos.
You see exactly what I'm talking about on Runner Watcher's screen. We've got bad pattern. He got hit by the Gibdos 3 times. Now he is down to 3 hearts of damage just like that, and that's why in a race setting you might want to consider pulling out the boomerang, but at this level of the race, you know, I mean, of the tournament, I mean, with the kind of competition you're going against, I don't think anybody's going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, you know, you're already in the motions normally of not picking up, you know, safeties or even dealing with all those things. So
yeah,
it's kind of hard to undo your muscle memory in this particular category. One thing that people who do both randomizer and the NMG have found is that it's very easy to forget to pick up chests. It's very easy to remember not to pick up chests.
Yeah.
But we're picking up our fire rod here, and this is really, really powerful weapon.
Oh, I think maybe bumping into the mini Moldorm there intentionally to take the death, I believe. I could be wrong, but he only had 1 heart left, and he still hopped into the hole. So I would think he either wasn't thinking about his hearts or he did that. It's a pretty smart death warp, to be honest. He's already at the front of that screen. It's exactly where he wanted to go. Only loses like, what, 5 or 6 seconds probably to go through that reload. So
yeah, certainly a better decision.
Yeah, not a bad decision by Runner Watcher. Unfortunately, would like to go back and redo that Gibdo room, but, you know, what are you going to do? Here we've got Runner Watcher on the worst boss. Not really the worst boss, but the most confusing boss. Why don't you explain, I don't know, why this boss is?
Well, so Mothula, I mean, it's one of those bosses where if you try to explain it when they get into the room, you're already too late. It's too fast. So there's a lot of things going on in this room. You have a conveyor belt that moves in random directions, cardinal directions. You have spikes that cross the room randomly that always do a heart of damage to you. Mothula is a really big pain in the neck, though. You know, it really bugs me because the bug himself, if you knock him into those spikes, it overwrites any damage you just did because he is immune to those spikes. So you oftentimes have a lot of your attacks, you know, kind of eaten up from doing so. So one thing that runners will do is they'll try to use the fire rod to unstick Mothula from the wall. We do a poke dash here.
Ooh, I think he got the double. Oh, wow.
That was a perfect fight.
Literally a perfect fight. So you're able to set up a dash there to dash into the block in the middle there and hit the moth both on the way up to the block and then on the way back out. So the only takes 4 slashes. You can get those 2 in really quickly, which is nice. And then just getting the 2 slashes in, that was a really clean fight. Both of them having good fights. You can get trolled on that fight for sure. I think it's definitely a huge skill difference between the best runners and you know, more middling runners like myself for Mothula, because you know, these runners have practiced doing poke dashes and different strats where even if Mothula trolls them and stays at the top of the screen, they're able to pull off a relatively quick kill, and Runner Watcher just getting the perfect one there.
And it's really nice when you get it fast too, because you know, less of the room is really going to mess with you. You mentioned trolling, but I mean, like those spikes, you know, they don't really cross the room until a couple seconds into the fight. So
everything is moving, and it starts getting crazy if the longer that fight goes on. So there's more spikes, the floor keeps changing direction, and you know, that really starts to just kind of add up on time. Both these runners heading over to Ice Palace now. They're going to go pay 500 rupees to buy the flippers, and they're also going to pick up their their which medallion? Quake medallion.
Yes.
From this catfish here. So knocking off a little bit more shopping too while they're on their way. And
of note is the bonk that we do here. This actually sets up for a quick warp that puts the camera in the perfect position. So it's based on camera position actually for quick warps. I didn't clarify that earlier, but doing that bonk against the ledge there sets you up perfect every single time.
Yeah, some quick warps a lot easier to set up than others. Some are just very difficult. Some have free setups. If you enter it from the left side or the right side, it'll just work. Other ones, you know, very precise, such as, you know, dashing up through that gateway after on the way here. That one's a very difficult one to set up, but you know, that little setup there with the bonk, you get to see the cool funny Link face animation, and you get to set up the quick warp. It's a win-win.
You know, I'm going through Zora's domain, with the exception of just the last little stretch there before Zora himself. JoeDamillio really putting on a showcase of how you can cut corners in this speed run, literally. Kind of similar to how you would in you know, some of the icier levels of Mario Kart. Because, you know, I mean, literally just cutting right over the corner of it. And that allows him to continue dashes for longer. So in screens like this where, you know, you're already dashing through a slow movement animation in water. You
can see it right there, too, dashing over the what looks like he should be in the darker water and not able to dash, but able to pull it off. You know, that being aware of which sections you can dash over and which you can't is really important for this, just because you know, what's visually there might not necessarily be what you're able to do. So I need to watch people like Joe, because I know my movement's not very good there.
Yeah, so folks, you know, we've been putting on a great show for us so far, but never a better time to mention it. These guys are always going to be putting on a lot of Link to the Past in their own channels. I recommend you give them a follow. They're definitely great people to watch.
Absolutely. Runner Watcher always doing Link to the Past stuff. Joe, all kinds of speedrunning content if you like other, you know, SNES games and the like. So both really good runners. Definitely worth your follow for sure.
I know Joe rolls deep, so if you want to, you know, roll the deepest, you definitely will find that on his channel.
One of the deeper rollers for sure. Runner Watcher getting a bit trolled by that Zora position, but able to maintain sword beams, which is kind of nice for the second room of ice. And here Joe's going to be entering into this giant Stalfos room. It's got a pretty cool setup. You're able to kill both Stalfoses with one bomb, which is cool. Got to preserve those bombs. And if you have ever tried to kill these guys without a bomb, like just slashing them to death, good luck. That takes... I had to try and do that, I think, in one of my races where I just completely choked. And
wait, that's possible?
I think it's like over 30 slashes. I'm almost positive. It's a lot of hits. Here we've got Ice Palace bomb jump coming up with Joe. You should be able to have no issue with this.
Yeah, one of the best time saves that we're going to have, he didn't even have to use sword buffers there. That was a really nice bomb jump.
Yeah, 100%. And pulling off the, you know, the kind of swag hammer dash down to hit the switch without taking any damage from the fire bar. So good job by Joe doing that really cleanly. Like we said, maybe not the craziest looking one. The hammer jump definitely looking more cool, but and the hammer jump saving like 45 seconds. This one's saving, I mean, minutes of time, because the intended route of Ice Palace is kind of convoluted. You have to kind of reroute and rewrap all the way through this dungeon. And the good thing about Ice Palace as well, we don't need to grab the big key. The boss room not blocked by the big key. A big key chest containing blue mail, and so we are able to just do this dungeon very quickly compared to what it's intended, because we just need to get to the boss. We don't need the blue mail. We don't need the big key. We don't need open chests. We don't need to do anything.
Another thing to note for this dungeon is that our runners absolutely have to have full magic walking into this boss fight. If they had full hearts, they could do a nice little sword beam strat to save some magic, but we're going to do the cold stare fight at this point.
JoeDamillio with his eight fire rod shots up towards the top to ice cube cold stare, doing a nice little spin move pattern there in the corner, and just really nice clean cold stare fight there. If the puffs get loose, the fight can become much longer. It's also dangerous. They do 4 hearts of damage per hit if you hit the puffs themselves. You've got the ice constantly falling from the ceiling, so Joe doing a great job manipulating the ice cubes, getting his eight fire rod shots in, putting those puffs in the corner, doing the spin. Looked really good. Let's see how Runner Watcher does entering the same fight. Again, this is the most punishing boss in terms of if you were to die to it, because you have to redo the whole dungeon. Runner Watcher with only 5 hearts of damage. He can take 1 hit, but he's got to be careful. I think he'll be fine, but you never know.
Yeah, those icicles do 2 hearts of damage, so you can only take 1 of either.
Yeah. I guess you could take 2 icicles. That's probably unlikely to happen.
Right.
Getting a little loose. Nothing. Maybe lost a second to that. That's fine. Didn't take any damage. These runners not scared of cold stare 1 bit.
Yeah. Nobody puts cold stare in the corner apparently, but besides JoeDamillio, but both of them pulled it off. That's what matters.
Ooh, Joe with the swag diving into the water and still getting picked up by the bird. I have never seen that. That was an interesting one.
It's the one place where you can take advantage of it. I'm not sure if anybody calls it swan dive, but they should.
Yeah, that sounds like the right name. You're completely correct on that. Here we see Joe setting up that quick warp, going in through the bottom and entering the left, saving those 32 frames. And heading on his way to Swamp Palace. Swamp Palace is the reason why we had to pay the extortionist Zora for the flippers. You can do everything else. We could have fake flippered into Ice Palace and done that, but unfortunately Swamp cannot be beaten without flippers. Or maybe it can with hovering, I don't know. Can you hover your way through?
No.
I mean, it would take longer, but...
The issue with it is that you have to jump off of a ledge. So that's the one reason why we can't do that. Now, if somebody out there finds out a way to do it,
don't find it.
Fake flippers.
You know, indoor fake flippers, I'll take that. But don't figure out how to hover it. I'm not ready.
If we could figure out how to do that without it being a major glitch and without being like ridiculous to set up, then that would be the skip. We would be able to avoid. Well, I guess we still have to go to Catfish anyway.
Sorry, that was loud. You'd still have to go to Catfish, but you wouldn't have to get those 600 rupees. You wouldn't have to go all the way up to Zora. It would definitely save time. You could go straight from Thieves Town to getting Tempered Sword to Skullwoods and not need to get anything.
Yeah, and then we could always mirror and flute if we had to.
Yeah.
From Catfish.
So this dungeon's definitely one of the easier dungeons in terms of the damage that they're going to be taking. So we have sequence broken the order of when you can do the dungeons. You can kind of do them in different order than you want, but the game does indicate which one is supposed to be done in which order. So the enemies in Swamp doing very little damage. So a lot of runners will kind of just take this dungeon easy and kind of coast. To Blunt Bunny's great dismay, this dungeon can be death by paper cuts. A lot of different rooms that you can take damage in, have to react to certain RNG patterns, and I think a lot of runners probably don't spend a lot of time practicing this, and so it can differentiate top runners from those who are maybe not practicing it as much, like someone like me.
I can definitely relate, though.
Yeah.
Because usually it's the damage that's not really a big threat. It's just the fact that you waste so much time taking all the damage boosts in bad directions.
Yeah,
all the
absolutely. And one of the easiest bosses as well. And so, if you have been running this game for months and like the things you're concerned about are dying to cold stare, dying to helmsor, all these things, you get to this dungeon that does very little damage and you kind of feel like you can take a breath for a second before you have to go do Misery Mire, before you have to do Turtle Rock and stuff. But you can lose a decent bit of time just on movement, on strats, on RNG from enemies. So definitely a dungeon that should get more focus than it does, and runners of this caliber definitely knowing that, which is good. So we'll be seeing some optimal movement here and such. Going up to get the big key, and then we'll be getting the hook shot, which has a lot of interesting properties. When you use the hook shot as Link, you can you have iframes while you're using it, so you'll see that used especially in the Ganon fight to avoid taking damage from anything. It also allows you to do item dash on ladders and such, just like you saw with spin speed. It'll allow us to hook through blocks, all kinds of different things.
Yeah, lots of well, I would be the first to say it, and probably not the well, I'm not the first to say it. This is a pretty weirdly programmed game. It's kind of funny to me that you said that this is one of the easiest bosses, because it's also one of the hardest bosses too, with one of the most difficult fast kill strats. It's hard to say which they're going to do, because I mean it's very not safe for RTA setting to do the zero cycle Argus, but
depending on how much health they have, probably. I mean, I think that's probably what it's going to come down to for these runners, because I guess I would say just least risky to die against boss, for the Dark World, especially if you're newer to the game. But yeah, zero cycle Argus, one of the most difficult strats. Doesn't even save that much time, right? What, like 4 or 5 seconds maybe?
Yeah, but I mean, it looks amazing.
It is really cool. I have zero interest in learning it. Not gonna happen, but kudos to those who have. It looks really cool. Let's see if they go for it. I'm assuming Joe's gonna go for it at least. And Runner Watcher enjoys the swag. He actually went for a giant hammer dash down in the first key room of Swamp and missed it. So I could see him going for the swag kill on Argus. We're about to find out in a moment here.
Yeah, we have the restock room here. One thing that's interesting is that sometimes when you boomerang or hookshot a heart container, you can get a double heal. Looks like JoeDamillio is not bothering with any health refills at this point. He's only down 2 hearts. But
no.
If you're in a bind, though, try hookshotting or boomeranging a freestanding heart refill. Sometimes you'll get double.
Yeah, those you have that little refill room and it's 2 hearts. It has arrows and bombs. Often a spot to refill there. Joe, nope, not going for zero cycle. He says he may know that he has a lead as well. It is important to note that these runners are allowed to see where the other runner is at. This is not rando, which would spoil anything. Everybody knows what's supposed to be coming up, and so that can affect your strategies as you see maybe how much of a lead you have. You might decide to take it a bit safer. Being behind, you might decide to take it a bit riskier. So that's important to know. Ooh, we got a map. Did Runner Watcher map? I missed that.
That appears to be what happens.
It is useful to know which dungeon you're in, what room you're in. I completely agree with the strategy. You got to make sure you know where you are before you move on. So I think that's a smart call. Yeah, smart call.
Well, so it's interesting that Runner Watcher walks past those arrows that JoeDamillio chose to pick up. I mean, there's not a ton that we're going to need anytime soon. It'll be a little while, before we really have to put them to use. Vitreous will be the next major application of them. And there's also a bomb that you can pick up there as well. Runner Watcher is down 1 bomb compared to JoeDamillio, but let's see if we're going to get that zero cycle. It looks like he was trying to set it up, but he didn't, get the hook dash that you have to get. So the way that works too, since we're not going to see it, but just kind of get a brief explanation.
Still a good fight.
Chain, like sword pokes with if you have your sword outstretched and you do a hook dash at the same time. But Runner Watcher had a really good fight, both of them with 1 cycle.
Surprised that neither of them going for the fire rod strat on the second phase as well, but both of them kind of taking just Argus easy. Maybe knowing that they just don't want to risk anything. They don't want to risk losing more time. If you're Runner Watcher, they don't want to risk any of their lead if they're Joe. I don't know if these runners are actually looking at the other runner or not. We see Joe going on his shopping trip here. He's got to pick up Ether, and he's got to pick up the Ice Rod, which is only needed to fight Trinex, and so he's heading on his way to do that. Runner Watcher should be doing the same, and then we'll be heading into Mire.
So we've had some rumblings and even a little bit of discussion in chat just now about some of this new speed tech, and we'll find out in a moment if the most common new setup for it will be used here. What we'll be looking for is when JoeDamillio does a flute here, if he does a quick dash right before it and kicks up his dust and then runs towards the bird, it's likely that he was doing... I don't think he did that, though. He didn't do the A buffer setup there, so he may end up... oh, because he's got to go do Ice Rod.
He's got to get this Ice Rod first, yeah. He went ahead and did... for some reason, he did the Ether first. I think sometimes... I mean, it doesn't really matter which one you do first. Sometimes it's nice to do Ice Rod first. If you do happen to take damage on Death Mountain, you can go ahead and slash those cardinal direction bushes. There's often a fairy or hearts in those. But, yeah, he'll be heading to Mire now. And I think if anybody understands this new tech, it's definitely me.
Well, so it seems like I may be mistaken. It seems like I'm 1 day out of date already. There appear to be new setups.
Wow. Embarrassing. Embarrassing. Let me explain. You know, you've got to get the Hyperflux pixel on the left side to go inside of the other pixels. You know what I'm saying?
Subpixels.
Yeah, the subpixels, and then you get the flux capacitor, and then that will flip the switch in Mire and save you, I mean, upwards of a week of time. So it's gonna be great.
So is it a big day today, though, or are we gonna throw a bird?
Nice.
Oh no,
I'm anti-bird meme, so I saw Tina do my favorite new bird meme, which is fire rotting down to melt the bird. I'm fine with that one. That's my bird meme. But I'm like anti-bird meme. I don't know. I'm part of that movement. There's an anti-bird meme movement.
Well, to each their own. We saw a really nice Mire too.
Different parties.
JoeDamillio there.
Yeah, that was a really nice Mire too. With sword beams and fire rod, you're able to do one cycle there. If you're just aware of where to dash, where to shoot, and saves a lot of time. I mean, if you're new to this game and you're trying to say, where am I losing this time? I'm trying to push my time down. A lot of times, if you're doing Mire 2, you know, not optimally, you can definitely lose a good 10, 15 seconds in that room, waiting for the Wizrobes to keep respawning and unspawning. So.
Yeah, so it's always nice to have full health walking into there. runnerwatcher does not, so he's going to have to use more of his fire rod in order to get through that room.
Yeah.
JoeDamillio tearing through Misery Mire right now, though.
Yeah, this is a big reason why I actually do my shopping trip one dungeon earlier so that I can get the refill and be guaranteed sword beams from Mire 2. But to each their own, it's not optimal. So a good runner can just do the same thing, but with fire rod, you get this full magic refill before this torches room that you just saw Joe in. So not really a risk of anything, but I like to have as many hearts as I can for Mire now that I've dropped powder, because I hate Vitreous. Vitreous is hard for me.
Yeah, it's definitely a very difficult boss to fight. So I'm curious, it seems like there's so many different setups for this new glitch that I might be poorly explaining it, but I do want to kind of just...
I just explained it perfectly. What are you talking about?
Well, you know, depending on... I don't know.
Are you trying to say that what I said was actual nonsense?
I think it's good to get you back to, like, you know, the future, but I'm not sure if it's going to get us back to the super tile glitch that we were trying to figure out earlier.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Can you try and explain a bit of this? What is it? The spooky
action from a distance. There's lots of different names.
Goodness sakes.
But basically, the way this whole thing works, though, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're doing, we're taking advantage of two different things. There's a variable that's set by certain objects that are projectiles. Basically, they're called ancilla in the disassembly of the game. So like fire rod shots, throwing certain projectiles like bombs, boomerangs, they have a certain item slot, and we can manipulate basically what the altitude variable is for that item. And doing so, and with the same slot that the fire rod uses, allows us to do some really weird things with y-coordinate position, with the y-coordinate position of the fire rod splash damage, or the AoE. So if everything goes correctly for these runners, they'll be able to shoot a fire rod through a wall, activating a crystal switch without bombing open a hole in the wall. And JoeDamillio doesn't have a bomb right now, so it really looks like he's banking on that.
Yeah, wow, that is a bold move. Ancilla also 100% sounding like something inside the plant cell, like if I was taking a biology class. Oh, he gets it.
Yep.
Whew. That's scary, man.
So there's more in-depth.
This strat has
technical
existed for
explanations,
one
but-
day, and he was willing to go in there with no bomb. Unbelievable, Joe. Oh, he didn't get that one.
Yeah, so I mean, it's still pretty weird. You know, we're not exactly 100%, you know, on execution with this yet.
Sure.
Not surprised to see anybody have a weird kind of mishap like that. But even then, it still did save time.
It probably broke even, I would say, between having to go back up and down, but maybe saved a little time. Still really cool to see, for sure, and very bold, just like going in with no bombs. I can't believe he would have that kind of confidence in a trick that he literally just learned that we barely know anything about.
According to Scrivo, he actually got rid of his bomb. But so we actually have a perfect zero cycle out of JoeDamillio with 1 heart left.
Yeah, it looked like he like almost intentionally took some of that extra damage at the end, but really, really nice clean kill. We'll see if Runner Watcher is able to do the spooky action glitch coming up here. Yeah, really bold move, intentionally dropping his last bomb, like almost out of spite, just saying, I don't need this anymore.
Okay, so this is the more recent setup that we're seeing out of Runner Watcher. He missed his fire rod shot that he was trying to do. Without the magic...
I don't know if he has enough magic to shoot the fire rod. Yeah,
he's
gonna
got to
have
default to his
bomb.
bomb.
Yeah, he's a little too low on magic, unfortunately.
But so the community's really looking into other ways that we can use this. The biggest thing that we...
Yeah, for sure.
The Swamp Palace switch.
Ooh.
For the left side, that would be a really big one. But we haven't found any kind of setup that makes that work yet.
Cool. Anything that gets me my sub 130 easier sounds great to me. So
it's free.
It will be technically less impressive, but I don't care. It'll just get me what I need, and then I can maybe never run this game again. You know.
Well, so Runner Watcher's in a rough spot. He's down to 7 hearts, and this is kind of like the floor for what you would want to have for this. He's still going to go for the damage boost strats, though. He's getting good spins.
He's got this. I'm not worried one bit. Yeah, he's going to go ahead and just arrow that. Yep, he's got it. Not even a concern.
Yeah, very nice.
Praise be to Sankheart.
Sankheart is the real MVP.
Praise be on to Sankheart for saving Runner Watcher literally twice so far. JoeDamillio heading up Death Mountain for the, 3rd time now, and last time heading on his way to Turtle Rock, which is a pretty tricky dungeon. Also a dungeon that requires a lot of different items. We're going to see a really unique, I guess, use. I wouldn't say use in terms of like runner use, but just like programming use for the Cane of Samaria. Not only does it shoot blocks that allow you to flip switches and then shoot off in multiple directions, but it also creates these floating platforms for you to travel all of Turtle Rock on, which is kind of weird. So really interesting item that they designed here. And Turtle Rock, you know, pretty tough dungeon. Enemies hitting really hard. The game's expecting you to have blue mail by now. It's expecting you to have picked up hearts and fairies and powder. And so it's a tougher dungeon, and that's why we've manipulated the drop table to get these runners a fairy. I don't believe either of these runners accidentally triggered a fairy on, say, Hammer Jump Bridge or anything. So they should be good to get a fairy in Turtle Rock, which will help them, you know, make sure that they're safe going all the way through.
And it could be kind of a weird thing where if they haven't triggered the heart drop yet, they might actually have bad luck where they only get that heart now because they need the heart. It's always going to be in sequence. So it'll be the heart, then the fairy. If they don't get the fairy drop when they want it, there are other Pokies in this dungeon, and of course, mini Helmosaurs in Ganon's Tower that can still give us a favorable drop. They're just hoping to find it right before the Chain Chomp room.
Yeah, I actually prefer to get it after the Chain Chomp room, especially if I was in Joe's situation where I took no damage on Death Mountain. I prefer to go ahead and just, you know, have it for Poke 1, because at that point, you know, I'm gaining more hearts back. Say he does get hit by the Chomps, he's down 8 hearts, he can get most of that back, whereas now, you know, he's only down 4 hearts. However, a lot of times you're on your way to Turtle Rock and you get hit by 2 or 3 dead rocks, and you might want the might want the fairy now, but you won't need it for the Chomp room at least. And that's the situation we want to be in. Yep, going ahead and doing the Chomp room perfectly. So no worries there. He'll probably, I would think, get the fairy drop on Poke 1. Runner Watcher, unfortunately, his screen seems to be frozen. So we'll see where he pops his head back up coming up soon.
Yeah, he's in chat saying something about a storm knocking out power in his house, and if that's the case, then he may have completely lost his entire save file as well. If that happens, then I don't believe he'll probably be able to continue the race at that point.
Wow, that's a very unfortunate way to get knocked out of the tournament. He was still within striking range for sure. Runner Watcher really, having a really solid run up to this point. Keeping pace with JoeDamillio. Unfortunately, looks like he's going to have to, I guess, forfeit due to power. I don't know. We'll have to see what the ruling is on the situation like that. But we can, I guess, focus on Joe's run for now. Getting the fairy, as we said, in Poke 1 there. So that, it's nice having it. Now you have full health going into the second half of Turtle Rock. He'll probably go ahead and enter Poke 2 backwards because he won't want to hit them with sword beams or anything.
Yeah, that's a very important thing.
Oh, yeah, he does.
RNG stinks in this room.
Oh, no, it doesn't. Oh, it's the God RNG. Goodness sakes.
There's 16 different RNGs, and that's the best one.
I've only gotten, I think I've gotten that, once or twice ever, and then I keep getting it in rando, and I just get, really angry, because I'm like, why? I don't need it in rando. I need it in my RTA attempts when I'm on PB pace, Oh, man.
What the heck's a PB pace, anyway?
Yeah, really, really nice Turtle Rock for Joe so far. Going real strong here. Oh, falling in the hole there. Interesting. He'll get hit by this too. So losing two hearts.
Speak of a good run.
But yeah, that actually ended up costing him 3 hearts of damage. That's kind of funny because he fell. That throws off the pattern of the fire bars. He got hit by that fire bar twice, but he should be fine on health. He was full on health going in there, and honestly, try next for a runner of his level, not really something he should be too worried about.
Yeah, I would say arguably the laser bridge script is a little bit more risky. I mean, both of these things are things that, if you practice like JoeDamillio has, not too bad.
Oh! Okay, so we're jinxing them now. So, Joe was way too far south when he started that dash, way too far down on the meter there, and he just completely face tanked a laser. But he is gonna have to be careful. He will be able to, if he doesn't take. Ooh, okay, that Pokey I think would have killed him.
It's either 3 or 4 hearts of damage. I want to say 4, because pretty much everything in this dungeon
Joe,
does 4
what are you doing? Okay, Joe, we need to have a talk. There's 1 heart there. Trinex does 4 hearts of damage. Just pick up the 1 heart. Why don't you just pick up the 1 heart? Oh my god.
Well, if fortune favors the bold, then he will take the small hug. This one doesn't hurt him, but if he takes a hit from the main head,
yeah, now I guess that heart wouldn't have mattered. So, oh no, things are getting weird. We have said too many positive things for Joe. Oh my god.
This is one of the strangest Trinex fights I've seen in a while.
Yeah. He did not finish the left head, unfortunately, Joe. Trying to go ahead and get that fire rod shot on the right head. He's got ice in the way, and he takes a death. And this would have been the window for Runner Watcher to catch up, but unfortunately, it looks like Runner Watcher is he's trying to load his system back up. I don't know what's going on.
No, I mean, he's definitely out. But he is showing us, hopefully, I think he's probably going to show us through the practice hack, probably a couple of strategies through some of the same rooms that JoeDamillio does.
What a bummer. Runner Watcher within striking range of Joe, who's a really good runner, and Joe taking a death on Trinex, but unfortunately Runner Watcher losing power. I don't know. I'll let maybe Scrivo message us or something to let us know if, they rematch, if this is forfeit, what I don't know what the rules are in this situation, but quite the bummer that, I think Runner Watcher would have taken the lead at this point.
Yeah, he's certainly in a good pace to do so.
Yeah, he would have definitely been in the lead at this point unless he also had made a catastrophic mistake on Turtle Rock. So just kind of a bummer to see that happen.
But it's good to see him get right back on the horse as far as practicing with the he's obviously watching this race alongside us for JoeDamillio's run. Kind of interesting that he doesn't get the good RNG with Pokies in Poke 2 this time around.
What a bummer. That could have been the comeback for sure. But unfortunately, due to power, there's nothing you can do about that. Unfortunately, you can't local record. When you don't have power, video games are electronics, so they do require the power. So, Joe, go ahead, heading back. This is one of the most punishing deaths too. You can, if you are playing this game casually or in something like rando, there's other doors that you would have entered in at this point to get to the big key chest. You can bomb that south floor in the laser room, but you're not going to be doing that in you know, in this NMG route. And so you have to go all the way back through most of Turtle Rock, which is obviously a fairly lengthy dungeon. You don't have to go through that detour to get the big key, of course, but outside of that, it's a several minute time loss. And Runner Watcher was only behind by less than a minute, I think. So here we have Joe doing his second try at try next. We'll see if it goes better. If you missed his fight, I think so. What went wrong? He missed a shot on the left side, so the left side was still alive. I think he thought it was done. Went over to the right side. The ice had also put ice on the ground, which is really the worst. And so he was just in a real weird state of low health, trying to, you know, balance the lag and getting the two heads down. Took too many hits. Was taking some body hits on the top as well. I think he hit the spikes here. Perfect, flawless try next kill. So showing how the fight's supposed to look like, and probably kicking himself a bit for the first fight.
Yeah, his refight was really good. That was a one-cycle try next, and he only hit the corner there after already been left aligned. I mean, that was a very fast finish.
I'm fairly certain that Joe probably hasn't had a try-next like that first one in probably like years. So just one of those things that can happen in this game, you know?
Gotta shake those cobwebs.
Yeah.
Roll deep.
Outside of that, Joe, really, really nice run so far here. Definitely on a, of course, sub 130 pace. You know, costing himself a couple minutes there, probably like a 128 pace, 129 pace, but
that's one of those gut check moments for me. Like, you see this ridiculous pace compared to, like, I mean, when I run this game, I've got like, what, 145? You know, he's at 120 leaving Turtle Rock. Kind of one of those, like, oh god.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm at the 131, and this kind of just shows like, oh wow, this person can sub 130 and die to Trinex, which is a very punishing death. So it's just crazy, the talent of these people. The amount of time that they're saving over a pleb like myself in a standard room is just so impressive. JoeDamillio is offering Runner Watcher rematch, so we will see. I don't know what the rules are for that, you know. I don't know what's Scrivo and the Link to the Past community guides, you know, decide on something like that, but we will see.
Yeah, we'll certainly give them the opportunity to have their say and, you know, make their decisions regarding that. Obviously, we are not tournament admin officials ourselves, so
yeah,
grain of salt anything that we say regarding that.
But regardless, just worth pointing out Joe's sportsmanship in the situation. You know, the Link to the Past community very tightly knit. A lot of us, you know, working with each other all the time, and you know, Joe, just an upstanding guy. The fact that, you know, he'd even offer that. I know Runner Watcher probably bummed by his, you know, technical issues kind of messing things up here. But here we see Joe utilizing the boomerang again, an item again that we haven't seen as often as we would, you know, maybe see it in a casual play, to do some pretty cool strats there for flipping the switches. Also using that hook shot to hook over the pegs. Really cool room there. I like that strat quite a bit.
The second one's way harder than the first one too, so it's always nice to see that actually pulled off without a hitch.
Absolutely, yeah. It's frustrating because if you miss it, you have to remenu over to the boomerang, then remenu over to the hook shot. So it's a frustrating one to miss. It definitely saves a considerable amount of time from placing a you know, a Cane of Samaria block or a bomb or something to trigger that switch. So, and here we have Joe going over to fight Ice Armos. So, you know, Armos on Ice, right?
Yeah, get your tickets.
Yeah, get your tickets for Armos on Ice. Here, the Ganon's Tower makes you refight all 3 of the Light World bosses, but all with different twists. Mostly Ice Armos being the most different. You know, Landmo does have a fire beam thing in the room that makes it more difficult, and Moldorm just much more, I guess, way more pits to fall into. You can fall into but you're so much more powerful at this point. Not really more difficult, but Ice Armos definitely more difficult, I would say, especially if you've, you know, not used to doing it and you don't have silver arrows. Some runners having silver arrows here can take those, you know, each one down in one hit, but
there's some really crazy strats for that boss fight, or that refight as well. Yuzahara out there ended up making a Ice Armos strat that just looks absurd. If you haven't seen it, I really
is that where you're in the middle of the 2 Ice Armos?
Yeah, you do that one.
Like the middle of the circle. Oh, maybe I haven't seen it. I'll have to check that out. Joe,
Oh, it looks incredible.
Joe doing some nice work on the Mimics room, missing one shot there, but outside of that, some pretty good work. Those rooms are incredibly difficult to do quickly. Going ahead and taking a safer strat here on the spike room, just, you know, finishing out, knowing he's already won. That room's very frustrating too. I hate the spike room.
Well, next up on Ganon Ball Z, we're going to see if we're going to make it through here without too much issue. A slight bump, but JoeDamillio not having too much trouble getting through there.
Yeah, and if you're confused by what's going on, the left screen, Runner Watcher has the practice ROM up. He is no longer in this race due to the fact that he lost power. And so this is Joe's match right now. So on the left, kind of just Runner Watcher booting up kind of where he would be at, you know, just to play along, of course. He is half the screen here, so why not? So we're not sure what the official decision is for what's going to happen there, but at this point, Runner Watcher's out of this particular race, at least, and Joe is finishing up here with a pretty strong Ganon Tower so far.
Yeah, with a really great one cycle on Lamos too.
Yeah, Lamo 2, you know, it's a scary fight in terms of just magic management, especially. You have to really understand how much magic you need for the rest of Ganon's Tower. It's not too bad, but you can't really miss any shots, or else you have to go ahead and switch over to, you know, doing spins. But it is really nice to get the one cycle there and kind of get revenge on a boss that, you know, may have taken you 4 to 7 cycles in your first fight of them. Joe maybe a little bit lower on health than he would like to be at the end.
Those guards gave him trouble there.
Yeah, he was already fairly low on health and maybe a bit concerned about that, considering, again, he doesn't have powder. He's going to have to go fight Ganon. But I guess not too concerned because he bypassed that heart on the top left of the screen there, so...
And he might be banking on the fairy at the base of the pyramid, or he could be a madman trying for damageless Ganon, which is very difficult to do reliably.
I would definitely vote that he's probably going for damageless Ganon, because he's going to be going in with probably 3.5 hearts at best. He does grab that heart, so maybe not even aware that there was a heart in the magic room. I don't know. That would surprise me, though, if you didn't know that.
You know, there's definitely a blinders that you get playing NMG. Just certain things you would just not ever look at in the game. That could very well be the case.
Yeah, it would surprise me as a powder player. I feel like, I mean, when you drop powder, you really want to save hearts as much as, you know, you end up in these situations in a tough dungeon. But I mean, even taking the intentional damage there, he is not scared one bit of Ganon, it seems. So, and here we have the Geometry Wizard. Here we have Aghanim, but it's 3 Aghanims. His clones always shooting energy shots. The main Aghanim can end up shooting blue balls, which really throws off the pattern. Very optimally, you could do this in 2 cycles if you have just unbelievable luck, but 3 cycles is really good. 4 cycles, I'd say, is pretty much average, because you have no clue how they're going to position themselves, if you're going to get energy shots or blue balls after the first phase. So that's a really nice, quick 4 cycle, I think.
And only the real Aghanim in that you know, set of 3 is going to actually do a blue ball attack, and it's still 50-50 odds, just like the first fight.
Yeah, but it really throws you off if you're planning on trying to reflect back the other ones and you hit a blue ball and then, or take damage from the blue ball, and then you can't reflect the others back. You don't know, you know, there's so many different configurations for where the Aghanims can place themselves on the screen. It's a tough fight for sure.
Wow, JoeDamillio rolling deep in here.
Rolling deep with 2.5 hearts going into Ganon. Let's see if he's able to get the sub 130. Here he's going to do the double spin. Going ahead, he's going to have to get 12 hits in with the slashed, with the tempered sword. Getting that in here on the first phase. So he got the 1 cycle first phase. Going into the second phase, he does have the luxury of being able to have Ganon really close to the wall there, so he can get double spins in really easily. And yep, he got a 1-in-1, which is really nice. So he's going into the third phase. I think he's going to be able to pull it off. Yeah, I do not like that position though when he's Ganon's a bit closer to the wall. It is harder to get the 1-in-1, I believe, than when he's further, but we'll see. Going ahead and going into phase 3, he just needs to hit him 4 times. Getting a lot of warps here. That is completely RNG based, but
yep, 50-50 coin flip.
Apparently, yeah. I mean, it feels like it's either not happening at all or happens a lot, but it is supposedly 50-50. So, and then going ahead, he's going to go for the swag long distance torch glitch. Really nice by him. And now he's got, I think, 12 spins to go, and he will be good. So, looks like he's probably going to pull off the damageless Ganon. No fear of the peg from Joe. Just showing off for the crowd here. So
wow,
really,
he gets another one. You'd think he has a scope on that fire round.
I know, and he's getting triples each one of these rounds, just showing what you know, what it's like to be very good at this game, which I'm, you know, not.
This is an absolutely phenomenal Ganon fight.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting triples each round. That was basically a perfect Ganon fight outside of the warps, which he had no effect over. So really nice finish by Joe, pulling off the 129. Oh, I don't know, 7. Oh, doing a little swag fire round shots there at the end. Looks like he's finishing up here with one.
I suppose we'd call it a 129.08 since we
yeah, I'm trying to see where it posts in speedrunning, the speed racing channel, but I do not see it. So maybe he did not hit .done yet. I'm not
so I think that
oh, the race was ended because of the runner watcher issue. So yeah, probably like a 129.08. Really nice time by Joe. I'm sure he would have liked a faster time, you know, with his 124 whatever. But considering he died to Trinex, which is a incredibly long you know, penalty for dying there, that's still a really nice time. Good 2.5 minutes better than my best time ever. So GG for sure to Joe. And let's see if we're able to get Joe or Runner Watcher on the call.
Yeah, I definitely want to get their words on this. This has been
for sure
absolutely insane.
Let's see if they're going to come in or not. I'm not sure if we're supposed to reach out to them. I think make sure you okay, yeah. Interview, yeah. Do we want an interview, my friends? Give GGs to both Runner Watcher and Joe. Runner Watcher being a good sport, going ahead, powering up the practice ROM and finishing off the run for everybody, at least just showing them the end of the game. I think that's really nice of him. You know, I'd be quite frustrated at this point, but you know, really being a good sport about that for sure. Joe wanting to pass on the interview, maybe Runner Watcher wanting to come in or not. If not, we can kind of just give our last thoughts. But Runner Watcher fully free to come in on the call if you'd like and talk about the run.
But other than that, though, we did get to see some very exciting things in this race.
Absolutely. First ever live showing of the new tech, right?
And experimental at that is stuff that was even a surprise to people who thought they had prepared for this commentary.
Yeah, I mean, that was really cool. I mean, Joe kind of showing the level of confidence he takes into every run. I mean, dropping his extra bomb to go ahead and do a trick that, you know, saves a few seconds, like 5-6 seconds, which isn't unsubstantial, but like a trick that was basically discovered yesterday, and he had the audacity to be able to drop his last bomb and just go do it, which is, I don't know, that's crazy to me, in a race setting especially. Really cool. All the runners doing really well. The only big mistake from anybody was the death from Joe to Trinex. Had a very wonky Trinex fight, to say the least. Outside of that, executed amazingly and went ahead and showed off how he's a 124 player, just finishing off a damageless Ganon, a basically perfect Ganon. Really nice. Unfortunately, if you missed the run, Runner Watcher not really forfeiting. I know it says forfeit, but his power went out, so it was not an intentional forfeit. He didn't rage quit or anything, just an unfortunate technical issue removing him from the match. So there has been an offer for a rematch. We do not know if that's going to be the case or not, but good sportsmanship from both sides. Runner Watcher being willing to boot up his you know, practice ROM and finish off the run for people just to be able to have some entertainment to see as well, along with Joe. But great run from both runners for sure. Oh, it looks like they got the okay from Feasel to do a rematch. So we may be seeing Joe runnerwatcher 2. This is like Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali 2, right? Or like you know, like all these fights where they fight each other 2-3 times, you know? This is the rematch. So the next race will be hot. We're going to see literally hot with the fire rod tech. But definitely great sportsmanship from Joe to be willing to do a rematch, feeling like maybe he didn't even deserve the win with the try next death. And a lot of people would just say, hey, I got the win, you know, technically I win, I get to move on. But Joe, like, just showing kind of the whole spirit of speedrunning and not wanting to eliminate Runner Watcher from the tournament in such a way. So really, really cool of him to be willing to do that for sure. And let's see.
All right, I got to sort out whether or not a different commentary will be an issue. I'll be right back, folks.
Okay, so Yuta stepping out. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know if I can do commentary for the second race if we're going a part 2, but we got to figure out what's going on here. In the meantime, I see a lot of Pog champs in chat. That's fun. So we got to just figure out this situation. Strange race. It happens whenever I do commentary. We have the double fake flipper soft lock in one of my commentaries. It's really my fault. So everybody in chat, go ahead and blame me for the technical issues for Runner Watcher. I think really I'm the one to blame of anybody. But you know, really solid race. It's really great to see runners running at this level. These guys are awesome, and definitely go to their channels, give them a follow in order to support them, watch them later, because they, as they showed today, just really amazing speedrunners, a lot of technical skill that you know, it's just impressive. So really awesome. Definitely go follow them. I know, I'm sorry, Fricker. I did my best. I didn't mean to jinx it. It's just my own influence. I can't even help it. I just curse things. So nobody is using the GBA version. That is a different speed run. It takes a different amount of time, so that would not be fair. It's just
a crime
difference
against humanity.
Difference in quality. What was that?
The GBA version is a crime against humanity.
Wow, crime against humanity. Listen, a lot of people got to enjoy this game for the first time on that. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Did they have to use the Ocarina of Time Link sounds? I mean, come on.
Maybe. I don't know. I can't answer that. I haven't played it since I started running this, but I did, like, before I got onto Twitch, I beat it like maybe 5 or 6 years ago on the GBA, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. I think it was probably the first time I had ever actually beaten the game. I watched my dad beat it as a kid, but I don't think I had the chops to beat it. So GBA version was my first probably completion of the game, and I liked it. But yeah, I wouldn't choose to speedrun it over this version for sure.
Certainly not.
Yeah, so what did you get any information on what's going on?
I don't have an exact answer on whether or not, because I'm booked for Speed Gaming 4 at 6 p.m. myself. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, because that is an hour and 15 minutes from now. That would be a pretty narrow window. I'm trying to figure out if someone would be able to cover that. If they will, then I'll be able to do the run back.
Okay, give me 1 second. Comment. I didn't see that. I got at mentioned here. So I'm going to step out for a second.